Are you hitting your weekly limits after just 5 requests? Then you're likely using up a lot of compute power that could have been outsourced to free models instead. As AI gets more and more widely used and the cost of inference becomes more expensive, we need to be more careful with how we use our plans, especially if there are some of these tasks that just require execution without any thinking. They can be done by free models instead. And in this video, I'll be showing you how exactly you can do that. So the subsidized era for AI is ending very soon. So this was an article that was published very recently by Peter Young, and it was based on all of the recent changes to Claude Code, the most notable one that will no longer support OpenClaw. And I totally agree with it because it no longer makes sense for Anthropic to give you a $200 plan, but the amount of usage that you have could be $1,200 per month. Right now, it's still only cheap because all of these companies, they want to acquire as many users as they can, but eventually all of them have to make a profit. And when that time comes, the terms will get worse and worse for all of these different paid subscriptions that you have. And we just need to be much more careful and much more intentional with how we use our plans. Right now, there are actually many different free tiers that are available. Some of them that you can plug in straight away into your own system, and you can use up all of these free tiers right away. So these are just some of the examples that I've found, which includes like Gemini, Google's AI model. It actually has this free tier with some rate limits. And the other one on the right would be Mistral, the European AI model, and its experimental plan also offers a lot of free usage. But of course, if it comes for free, then there are many caveats to it as well. The most important one would be the rate limits. And you can see here, this is my usage. I tried using the Gemini free tier, and some of the rate limits here will include RPM, which is rate requests per minute, TPM is tokens per minute, and requests per day for RPD. And you can see that I hit the requests per day limit for Gemini 3 Flash, which only had 20 requests, which is actually very limited. As a free tier user, you'll always get the lowest priority when it comes to messages that are being routed to the servers. So you may experience certain delays in your responses, and the performance may not be as great as if you were a paid user. And of course, there will be other considerations as well, including how they retain your data. Usually, if they give all of these plans for free, then there's likely some data logging that's involved. So again, this is something for you to consider if you are concerned about data privacy. But for myself, I'm mainly using it for very simple tasks that do not require a lot of the context from me. So I'm comfortable with using it. So these are just some of the considerations that you have if you want to use free models. And let me just show you quickly how to configure and start using all of them. So let me introduce you to freetiermodels.com. This is a site that I created that shows and highlights all of the different direct providers as well as aggregators that I've used so far to give me free inference inside their free tiers. And I've also shared my verdict for all of them. I've not found one that's the most perfect, which gives me a 5 out of 5 stars, but they do give decent enough free inference. This also shows you the requests per minute as well as the requests per day to let you know exactly what are the full capabilities of the free tiers. Apart from just the model providers, there's also the aggregators. These are not the main model providers themselves, but some like GitHub Copilot, they let you run multiple models from all of the different providers. So I see them more as aggregators rather than direct providers. And the last part is more on the promotional credits. So like for KiloCode, you get $2.50 once you actually sign up, and that will get used up the more you start using all of the different models based on their token-based pricing. So let me just go through how to use all of these different API keys. I have a video about API keys and all of the key points to note. That will be inside the description of this video. But the more important portion is that you need BYOK interface. So this is a bring your own key interface where it lets you connect any of the API keys and you can start using them right away. And of course, the API key themselves, you need to sign up for an account. Some of the sign up processes can be quite long, and let me just go through some examples with you. We are inside of Google AI Studio where we'll be generating our API key for the Gemini models as well as Gamma. So Under the free tier models, you can just go here to get the API key, and then this will lead you inside. You can click here to get the API key, and then this will lead you inside this page. So under the API keys, I'll just create one new one. And just put it as test to delete. Now we have this API key that we can then use with OpenCode. That is my main BYOK provider that I'm using just because a lot of the different model providers have already been pre-configured. If you need any help with installing or using this platform, then all of the guides or the details will be found inside of my API key video. So now under OpenCode itself, you can just click here, and then I'll click to manage models, connect provider, and then search for Google. Right away, it's so easy. You can just put in your API key here and it should work. So now we just need to go back to models. I'll go to manage models first, search for Google as the provider. You can see that a lot of these different models have already been pre-configured. Let me just quickly switch. I'll just use like some of these ones. And the reason why I'm actually using like Gamma as well as Gemini Flash Light latest. If you go back to the rate limits, I'll click here. Then if we look at all of the different requests, the one that we need to look out for is requests per day. And then you can see that there are some of these ones where since we are on the free tier, it is extremely limited. The 14.4K ones are for the Gemma 3 models. But you wouldn't want to use that because there's Gamma 4 and it is 1.5K requests here. Another one would be the Gemini 3.1 flashlight. This one actually gives 500 requests per day, which is very generous, and the rest of them aren't really that useful for me. So that's why I decided to just enable both Gamma 31B as well as Gemini flashlight latest as my two main models inside here. So now that that's done, we can just click on this portion and then we can search for Gemini flashlight latest, and then we can just ask what model are you running. So again, since this is a free model, likely the request will take much longer than if you were to use any of their paid tiers. The annoying part is that initially during the setup, you always encounter issues like this. It just takes very long for you. So I'll just usually try to troubleshoot. Just press escape to interrupt it and then just ask again. So it's actually quite interesting. I switched over to the Gamma 4 model and then it immediately runs this. Wow. So the request per day for Gemini 3.1 flashlight has actually been used up, even though it didn't come up with any output at all. And then if you go and look for Gamma 4, interestingly, it has not actually used any of the requests here. So here, what actually happened, I just asked what are the hot news for today. Then it went to web fetch news, the Google News, and then it just showed all of these portions. So now if we refresh again, then you can see that now Gamma 4, I've already used up 5 out of my daily requests just for some of these simple tasks. All of these free models are not meant to replace your main subscription, but it does help a lot to offload some of these tasks that likely don't require as much thinking, and likely they're still able to execute it with a decent quality of outputs. And these would be the tasks that I would move over to them. For example, in my workflows, I like to extract the transcript from a YouTube video and then perform a summary based on the prompt that I've already generated. Most of this likely I can outsource and offload it to these free models. So the other one that is really cool is Nvidia NIM. So I listed this as one of the top aggregators that you can use for free models. The limits are very generous at 40 requests per minute. So it's found here, but then I'm not too sure what is the maximum rate limits per day, which are not advertised inside. Similar to how we got the API key from Gemini and then just put it inside of OpenCode, we can do the same here. I can just go to manage API key and then we just put to delete in just 1 hour. That's very good. And then I'll just copy this API key inside of OpenCode. Again, the same process, manage models, connect provider, and then I'll go to Nvidia and let me paste it here. So now again, we can go back to the providers page and then just search for Nvidia. So all of these here are actually the Nemotron models that we can ignore. The ones that we're more focused on are Nvidia itself. And you can see that they have already pre-configured some of these. I'll just remove some of them. And the one that I want to use is Kimi K2.5. So let me just go here. You can just search for Nvidia. And then you can scroll down. These are all the ones that are available within Nvidia NIM. And you can just type again what model are you running. Based on my experience, Nvidia's NIM is actually running. It can take a while to execute complex tasks. Maybe it's because I've hit the 40 RPM limit for Nvidia, but I did experience quite a bit of downtime when I was learning some of my skills. I would say it is pretty decent. You gain access to a lot of different variety of models through the NIM provider, while also getting 40 requests per minute. Going back to this site, all of the steps to set it up with OpenCode can be found here on both the desktop and the terminal. Let me just quickly show you the terminal and how you can build it up. So once you have actually launched OpenCode, all you need to do is just type models, and whatever that we have pre-configured inside of OpenCode desktop, the same configuration can be found inside of the terminal. So if you search for Nvidia, you can see that, okay, there's all of these different models that you can select. Unfortunately, not like the OpenCode desktop, you would have all of the models be listed here, so it can be quite frustrating, especially if you've included a lot of these different API keys. So if you do want to connect a provider inside of the OpenCode terminal, you can press Ctrl A on the Mac. And then again, it will show you like all of these different providers. You can just include any of them at all. So like for example, Ollama Cloud, that's another one. And then you can just enter the API key here. Everything should be set. Then you can go back to models again, and then you can just select which model you want to use. Some of the aggregators, I've rated them extremely low, such as like GitHub Copilot. The free tier, you only have 50 requests per month, and that gets you stuck extremely quickly, and that's why I don't really recommend it. For Ollama Cloud, it is decent enough, but I also realized that my rate limits get hit, especially for the 5-hour ones, very quickly. So I'm also curious to know like which are some of these free tiers that you're using, and I've not included it here. Feel free to leave it in the comments below. The other aggregator with decent free models is OpenRouter, and for me, it's actually not really free because you need to top up at least $10.50 before you can start using it more extensively. And check out this video that appears on the screen where I share a bit more about how to use OpenRouter's free models more effectively and avoid some of the mistakes that I made.